Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, some good, some bad, some simply beyond this realm. The tales you are about to hear are the untold stories of those who entered the shadows, perhaps against their own will. These are the Terror Tapes. Terror Tapes, Episode 2, A New York Nightmare. Sarah had finally started a new chapter in her life. After enduring what felt like a never-ending cycle of heartbreak and stagnation, she decided to leave behind her suffocating job and tumultuous relationship. The decision was impulsive, the kind of leap that left her friends questioning her sanity. But for Sarah, it was a rare act of defiance against a life that had always felt beyond her control. With a hastily packed car and no plan beyond survival, she drove to New York City, hoping its ceaseless energy would drown out all of her doubts. The apartment she found was old, nestled on a shadowy street lined with brownstone that seemed to lean forward conspiratorially. The chipped walls and uneven floors spoke of a long history, one she didn't have time to consider as she unloaded her belongings. From the moment she stepped inside, the air felt heavy, as if the apartment were holding its breath. She chalked it up to nerves, but unease clung to her like a second skin. Boxes were stacked in every corner of the new apartment. When Sarah returned after her first new city outing, checking a local diner, she saw some of her boxes rifled through and others torn, as if by claws. It made no sense. She had been very careful packing. Did she leave a window open and a critter got in? No matter what, it obviously never found what it was looking for since everything was still there, no missing items. Her frustration simmered as she hung the last piece of decor, a small tarnished cross her grandmother had given her years ago. She placed it above her bed, feeling a fleeting sense of comfort as it gleamed faintly in the dim light. The strangeness began subtly. A whisper at the edge of hearing, a misplaced book, a door that refused to stay closed. By the third night, Sarah couldn't dismiss the creeping sensation of being watched. She turned suddenly, expecting to catch someone or something lingering in the corner of her vision, but she was always alone. One evening, while unpacking the last box, a horrid stench assaulted her senses. She gagged as she trekked the smell to its source. Inside the box was a gruesome sight, a dead bat, its mangled body swarming with maggots. Beneath it lay an old photograph of her and her ex-boyfriend, his face crudely cut out. The blood from the bat had soaked her side of the image, creating a grotesque tableau. Panicking, she dropped the box. The maggots spilled onto the floor by the hundreds, writhing and spreading with unnatural speed. Within seconds, they swarmed the kitchen, climbing the walls, covering the counters, and to her horror, crawling up her legs. She screamed, thrashing to shake them off, but they clung to her skin, their tiny little bodies cold and wet. Her vision blurred and her ears rang with the sound of a door slamming somewhere in the apartment. When she blinked again, the kitchen was pristine. The box lay undisturbed, its gruesome contents reduced to the bat and a few scattered maggots. Shaking, Sarah retrieved the photo, ignoring the sticky blood that clung to her fingers. Despite its unsettling state, it stirred an odd sense of solace. It was a relic of a life she had fought to leave behind, but also a reminder of the strength it took to do so. She pinned it to her fridge, and an anchor in the sea of her unraveling reality. In the days that followed, Sarah's attempt to rationalize the events failed. She told herself it was exhaustion, stress, or the lingering effects of the abrupt move. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. The feeling of dread became a constant companion, a weight pressing down on her chest. Paranoia seeped into every aspect of her life. She found herself zoning out for hours, trapped in a mental fog that left her disoriented and drained. Her episodes worsened. During these hysteria states, she'd catch glimpses of a tall, shadowy figure drifting through her apartment. Its movements were slow and deliberate, like a predator surveying its prey. At night, it grew bolder. By the ninth night, Sarah was no longer alone in her room. The figure stood in the far corner, its pale, bald head barely visible under a shroud-like cloak. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but its presence was suffocating. For hours, she lay frozen, staring at the figure as it stared back. The moonlight only illuminated parts of its head, leaving the rest a dark abyss. Her exhaustion betrayed her, and she drifted into a restless sleep. She woke hours later, her heart pounding as she found herself nose to nose with the creature. Its eyes were a boiling red, churning like molten lava. She couldn't look away. Her body felt paralyzed, her screams trapped in her throat. The creature's icy fingers traced her skin, its nails dragging up her stomach, her throat, and finally her jaw. Without breaking its gaze, it forced her mouth open, crawling inside her. She woke up with a scream, drenched in sweat. The figure was back in its corner, unmoved, unbothered by her terror. She didn't sleep again that night, watching it until the first rays of dawn dissolved it into nothing. The following week, a plumbing issue forced Sarah to crawl under her sink. As she cut into the wall to access a leaking pipe, her knife struck something solid. Curious, she pulled out an old leather bag, its surface cracked and reeking of garlic. Inside were journal entries, yellowed with age and covered in frantic handwriting. The entries told the stories of a previous tenant who had lived in the apartment. At first, the writer's notes mirrored Sarah's own experiences: odd noises, moving shadows, an oppressive presence. But as the entries continued, they grew more frantic, detailing the relentless torment inflicted by a vampire-like creature. The final entry was chilling. There is no escape. Death is the only mercy. As Sarah read, a whisper echoed throughout the apartment, a voice that seemed to circle her head. "Too late," it said, clear as day. Her blood ran cold as she spun around, finding nothing but the suffocating silence. That night, Sarah awoke to the sound of her ex-boyfriend's voice calling for help. She stumbled into the living room, heart racing. He stood with his back to her, his voice weak and trembling. "Help me, Sarah," he pleaded. She approached cautiously, her hand trembling as she reached for his shoulder. When she turned him around, his face was a hollow ruin, maggots crawling from empty eye sockets and a gaping mouth. She screamed, stumbling backwards into the towering figure that loomed behind her. Its arms spread wide, its fangs glistening in the dim light. Its eyes bore into her, unblinking and filled with hunger. Cornered, Sarah grabbed a knife from the kitchen and with a smile of defiance, slit her own throat. As her blood pooled on the floor, she locked eyes with the creature, its expression twisting into rage and horror. Her vision faded to black. When Sarah awoke, she was standing in the corner of her bedroom, staring at her own lifeless body on the bed. The vampire stood beside her, its face unreadable. 2 police officers entered the room, discussing her death. They found no cause, no trauma, and remarked on the eerie preservation of her body weeks after her death. Sarah tried to speak, to scream, but they couldn't hear her. When she stepped into the moonlight, her skin sizzled. She looked at her hands, now tipped with long nails, and felt sharp fangs in her mouth. Around her, the shadows stirred, revealing others like her, trapped in eternal silence. As she gazed at the photograph still pinned to the fridge, her own face stared back, forever cut off from the life that she had fought so hard to reclaim. And that concludes another journey into the dark world of the Terror Tapes. If you enjoyed the terror, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join our growing legion of fear seekers, and together we'll explore the darkest corners of the unknown. Until next time, stay haunted.